Hey, rock stars. Welcome to the Team Sizzle. I'm really excited about this Team Sizzle because we've had so many epic changes in our world in the last 30 days. I don't know if you've been seeing the fun memes going around, but I believe today is March 95th. So hang in there. We will get through this month. It will be good. I had the pleasure of speaking with Teresa Goodlet yesterday, and we were talking about changes in business. And I was actually asking her if she'd be willing to share some of the things that she's been doing. And you know what she said? You got to call Jill because she's on fire. So get her on the phone because she has so much good information to share. So I've been messaging with Jill back and forth since yesterday, and it's been so fun because her energy is really contagious. I'm excited for her to share what she's been doing to kind of snowball and get things rolling in her team. Jill is a silver. She informed me last night as we were chatting, she just hit silver again. So that's a big deal. So Jill, I'm going to turn it over to you, girlfriend. You're unmuted.
Okay. I just want to say I feel very humbled to be sitting here talking about anything that I would be doing because I feel like I'm in the toddler tween stages of this sort of journey with doTERRA. And when I was talking with Kinsey a little bit about like thoughts that I had about anything that I might offer that might be useful, sitting here and looking at all of these people, especially my team, Amanda, who, I mean, I don't know how I would be here without her. And then all the friends that I met at convention, and those random people like Crystal that just picks you up in her car and drives you places, like maybe to get lunch in the middle of the day. And then you find Dana, and then you just meet all these amazing humans. And so I guess maybe what I was thinking about this month has just been the biggest roller coaster. And I think it was probably 3 weeks ago today, where I was making this incredibly hard decision to not go to convention before it was canceled. And part of that was some significant discussions I had with my husband because of the work that he does and some warnings that he got before they were even released, and was told not even to tell anybody yet because he needed to process the information. And so I made this decision not to go to leadership. And it was like the hardest decision. And my team, talking to Courtney and Teresa and Amanda, about why I would not choose to go, because I'm a pediatric occupational therapist in my day job. And I work with medically fragile children, and deciding it felt very unethical, even though I knew doing the work that we do through doTERRA and keeping myself healthy was not as big of concern as I was for what I might bring home to the kids that I work with. And nothing had been canceled at that time. And then eventually it got canceled, and I even had a class planned in Phoenix because I have relatives there. So I thought, well, okay, this isn't happening, and I got to make some decisions about what I wanted to do. And I decided I'm going to call those people up, and I'm going to say, here's the deal. I'm not coming, but do you want to talk about this anyways? And those two people enrolled. It just started this chain of events of, sitting around the fire in my backyard talking to Amanda about, what are we going to do now? What do we want to do with this information, and what do we want to do? Because then it became very apparent that it wasn't the time as much to push a business as much as like, we got to get these things in people's hands. And so I guess when you asked me about pivoting, I was thinking about how I've been pivoting at key moments my whole life. And that taking each time you make those pivots, it's like this lessons that you take with you. I met Amanda by working with her foster baby, who is now her amazing son and Mike's son. And that was a pivot point of walking into their home and doing my traditional occupational therapy things, when I always have one foot firmly grounded in Western medicine, and the other foot is always grounded in possibilities, because that's an OT brain is whatever else is out there, and gut and intuition and all those things. So that was a pivotal point. And it's like, what the energy that you felt different, and what do you do with those things, and how do you take them along with you? And I think for me, really in this business, that was not intentional, because I have a day job that I really do love, and not sure how I would ever quit doing what I'm doing, except that it's getting really hard because of restrictions and budgets and paperwork and what you can say and what you can't say. And doTERRA has just given me this opportunity and freedom back to use all of this knowledge and information I have. And it matches so well with, again, one foot in Western medicine and one foot in every other possibility that is to be talked about and known. And so that was fantastic moment where I thought, okay, I'm at convention, and they asked, and I thought, I think I turned to a man and said, okay, my goal is I'm going to retire early because I'm tired, and I want to do something different, and I want my energy back. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, that made it real. And I was like, okay, I'll give myself 5 years. And then I'm going to retire early, and then I'm going to do this. And then I might do that occupational therapy back to maybe some private practice or something like that I used to do. And so my goal was in September to hit silver within a year, because the highest rank I had hit premier once, maybe twice. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this in a year. And if I really work hard, maybe 9 months, because I have a day job. And then I hit silver in November. And I was thinking, like, what happened with that? And I think in October, I turned 50. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do with this? And I have watched so many amazing training videos. I've listened to all these leaders talk about all these amazing things. I've heard you guys talk about your strengths. And it's funny because I haven't ever redone that again, because that's something I've done before. And I think I was trying to figure out why I haven't done it again. And I think it's because for once in my life, I'm confident with, I know what they are, and I don't need to revisit that anymore. And it's not because I know everything, and it's not because of, I'm just like, I got to do something else now, because in your top Gallup poll thing back in when you're at the hospital, and they're like, send you in to manage uncomfortable, unhappy patients and their families, and your top Gallup poll is woo, then that's what you do. And that, so when I turned 50, I have my own Facebook group now. And I decided to do it a little bit different than maybe other people are doing it, because it felt like something I could do. So in my Facebook group, you don't have to be a doTERRA enrollee. You have to be interested in wanting to know more about it. And there are a few, just a hint of people that already have accounts maybe with somebody else, but they're friends of mine or people that I know. But primarily it is, if you already have an account, great, join my Facebook group so we can talk. If you don't and you want to know more, come on in. And then I open it up even more by talking about, gosh darn, anything that I could think of that felt important. And then I started doing more lives. So on my birthday month, I did a whole month of celebrating the people to help me celebrate myself, because that felt most important. I did a giveaway every day, and I had, I talked about any natural, wonderful thing that I could think of. Primarily it was doTERRA, because that's the bulk of my life. But I also talked about other products and other women that were doing these other multi-level marketing, however you want to call these wonderful businesses. And I invited them on to talk to. And I did a live almost every day, and that was a little bit out of my comfort zone. And now I can sit at this desk and blather on for hours, and I try to keep it much shorter. But so that was like I wanted it to not be just about doTERRA for the sake of doTERRA, for a business, for selling, for whatever. I wanted it to be a group where everybody like could find their common ground and share ideas and whatever. So it was a really cool thing, like to give that a try, and it's becoming very successful. And just after I quit, I was like on my last day, I was like, okay, well, this is the end of the giveaway. And I was trying to figure out what to do to keep coming. And I got so many messages like, we miss your lives. We miss talking to you. And I'm like, well, I kind of miss talking to you too. And I mean, I would do them anywhere. I live on an acreage. I got a wild hare and moved out to an acreage, and I have some alpacas and some geese and some donkeys and some sheep. And so I might sit out. I was sitting out, maybe I'd get an idea and I would be out with the sheep, and then I would do one. And it was just very spontaneous. And what I started realizing is I didn't matter how many people liked my post. It didn't matter how many people commented. And this is something I innately knew from maybe being an OT and maybe working with families, is like, you have to meet people where they are. You can have, I'm an OT, and when I go to family, I'm like, I have 33 ideas from the minute I walk in the door. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what Amanda needs for Joe. And it matters what, any new person I'm enrolling, it matters what they need. It doesn't matter what I want them to know. You have to meet them where you are. So you can have watched some really good videos about training and about even some scripts that you feel like kind of get your feet wet with a new thing, the new idea. But in the end, if you are not talking and listening to that person, this is not going to work. And the other thing that I was thinking about is the idea of, I've watched several things on closing, like closing a class and what a class closing, what that meant to be successful. And it was so relieving for me this year to make a decision. Oh, it says my internet is unstable, so you have to let me know if you can still hear me. But what it was very relieving to do is to let go of that. I don't care if anybody enrolls after my class if they got something out of the class. If they got information that they're going to go home and they're going to mull over, if they got something where they felt better when they left, if they felt like somebody heard them for the first time about the issues, they got to give them the basics. And you got to talk about the products, and you got to talk about how amazing you are, and maybe why you even started. Tell your story and keep it short, which is hard for me because there's so many reasons I did. But though I'm a little emotional because even since I talked to Kinsey, I've had 3 more enrollments. I've had 17 this month. And some of those are people that I've been working with for 9 months. A military mom who moves all the time, who's been saving her dollars and asking questions. And then she'd be quiet for a couple months. And then she'd ask some more. And I'd talk to her a little bit more. And then she'd talk a little bit more. And I have had more people enroll by watching this group and not being enrolled and gathering this information and making. And then I've had some that are just like me. Well, that's not true. I did 6 months research before going to Amanda's class, and then it was another month before. And so I think that idea that maybe this is a different idea, but I don't necessarily concern myself with that close because of building that relationship with that person. And if they feel heard and they feel connected and they feel like somebody's actually paying attention to them, like people have done for me, those people not only going to roll, they're going to stay. And they're going to stay, and it's going to, because nothing about this business is fast. The wheels don't work magically overnight. Well, some do. That's true. Some do. But it's like this process of you eat better, you take your supplements, and it's like, I was still sick a lot the first year I was using them. And then I had to recently go get my inhaler refilled because of what's going on around the world. And I realized I haven't refilled my inhaler, and never in 50 years have I let that lapse. And I had to go to the doctor to get it refilled. And she's like, went in, she's like, "Hey, Jill, where you been?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, am I late?" She goes, "No, where have you been? You have been here since 2018. I was like, "Oh, okay." So, and I was a visitor to, sinus infection, all that. So that whole process took me a long time. So building slowly is a doTERRA way. I mean, I think because you under your people much longer. Those pivoting, I guess, if you want to talk about that, that's what I've been thinking a lot about, of taking what I've learned from all these amazing people, like watching Amanda do her work, and now joining, and seeing Iris do her work, and Dana do her work, and all of you guys, Crystal do her lives, and feeling like, oh, that's something I'd like to do, or that seems interesting to me, but not having to replicate what they do, because then you're genuine, and you don't feel like that. And yes, twice, because my mouth always says different things, but it always says different things because of what the people I'm sitting in front of are wanting to hear or wanting to know about. And so giving yourself that freedom, like, I can take what I know and kind of pivot and make it what I know how to do. And so even, Amanda, I mentioned her a lot because we live just a few miles from each other. And like when leadership got canceled, we sat right back here and watched the whole thing on these two chairs back here. And we just are kind of, so if you have a partner like that, where you guys we teach our classes together most of the time, our product of the month parties are together all the time. I might teach some on my own and she might, but primarily we're working together all the time. She has mad skills that I don't have. I mean, and things like that in my occupational therapy classes, and I can read all that stuff, but I don't retain it in the way where I can regurgitate the science. I can read it, understand it, but for it to come out, I'm like, oh, got it. Now I know why you use this, and I don't need it. Amanda, on the other hand, and Mike Whitman, on the other hand, can regurgitate this stuff that I'm just like, I can't even compete. So we just kind of do this flip-flop kind of thing when we work together, and our parties are fun, and we have stuff, and people come over, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to order that next time, and oh, that makes so much more sense for me. But yeah, this month got real weird real fast. And so everything that I had planned for in person, and I started Nyman Club, and this is the first year I could think about it because I can't travel. I have I counted to have 75 animals. I have a lot of birds right now. So I can't it's really hard for me to just get up and go. Somebody made me count today. I have like a lot of baby birds right now, and ducks and chickens, and so when they said I don't have to travel, I was like, okay, now, because I'll come home from a long day at work and I am totally ready to do this because it gives me so much energy back, that I can go take a break, and then come up to my office here and I get to work. And so my calendar was actually full of in-person classes. And at the time we're like, I wonder if we can still have that. And then rules kept changing, 50 people, 10 people. I guess we're doing a Zoom. I guess we're going to figure this out. I guess I'm going to use my son, who is 17. My other two are out of the house. He is going bonkers because he can't go anywhere, but he can make deliveries. So he has, we've been setting up classes, sometimes if they're all local people, just 3 days in advance. And he's like, you got deliveries for me today? He's just so aching to get out of the house, and it's a safe way. He can stay in his car. He drops them on doorsteps. I send him envelopes. He's got his GPS. Sometimes they're rollers of pre-made things, and sometimes they're samples. And I'll put the handout, the real simple start handout, and we jump on Zoom and we have a class. And so that's been fun. And then Amanda's like, hey, let's do a make and take. And I'm like, yes, let's do that. And so we did a make and take. And it was the first time she'd ever done one a make and take with, and the most interesting part of that for me is we do these a lot. We have classes sometimes twice a week, and sometimes they're for new people, and sometimes they're just for existing customers to keep them. Well, first of all, we love seeing them. It's good for my soul as much as it is for theirs to see these people. Um, but I had so much feedback, and I'm not even sure if I've had a chance to talk to Amanda about this, is people said, I'm kind of glad you did a Zoom. It's really hard for me to get to your house sometimes. The times you pick could work for me, but I don't have anybody to watch my kids or whatever. And so sending out a list of, here's all the oils you need, here's the rollers you need. I've even talked about, like, if you want to come out, drive out, I'll put, a kit of what you need for the make and take, and you come grab it, and then I'll see you in 2 days at 8:00, and we're going to do a make and take so you guys know what to do. We're all learning brand new skills. So this Zoom business, which I learned for the first time of coming on one of these that I'd never used before. And I was like, this is weird. You kind of have to, I don't know, you're like the creeper at the bottom of the screen, or you're like, under the shadows of your light, or your dog walks in, or you're like, what's going on? You're drinking your wine. But it was really powerful to, like, hear people go, that was a great Zoom. That was a great make and take. I could actually get to one. I was like, oh, clearly when all of this ends, we're still doing those. We're still doing Zoom make and takes for real. So that was kind of a cool thing. So I guess those are like the big things that have happened, is watching these enrollments come from people that I've been working with a really long time. And then there's some people that I've known for a long time who didn't know I was doing this. And so my personal job changed my area of town that I work in. I do home visits, and I had to meet a whole bunch of new people. And on my desk, I have samples all the time at work. And again, I don't know what schools of thought are about that, but I have rollers on my desk hung up all the time for people to, during hard times at work, like whether we have, I don't know, an audit coming up, and we had 3 monster days of trying to prepare to get out of this office building and to get home and to figure out how we're going to do distance learning. There were samples on my desk of adaptive. There were samples of deep blue, and each day I would bring a new one in, just little baby things. And boy, those things, I might walk and head off to the bathroom and come out, and they would be, they'd disappear. And those are the people that, like, in November when I hit silver for the first time, like, I was just walking past the person who does all of our filing for us, and she's like, hey, Jill, I wanted to talk to you about this oil stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Like, whenever you have a break, because I'm very careful about trying to keep it separate at work. Like, offering free samples is fine, but I don't talk about signing people up at work, because that's just a line I don't cross. So she had a break, and she's like, no, I'm totally ready to sign up. And I'm like, great, let's do that, because she'd had, 6 months of people just talking, and the people around me are doing more talking than I am now. And so finding those people that, like, last night at 9:00, somebody messaged me, and she doesn't even use oils that much that I know of. She's very quiet. She doesn't do a lot, but it was somebody I work with who also has a new position. And she's like, hey, my neighbor wants to sign up. And I'm like, okay. And it's somebody I had met at my first, school I worked at. And she's like, yeah, I'm ready. And I want I'm still struggling with the new names of everything. The healthy, not that great. And I said, do you need rollers and do you need coconut oil? Because normally I would tell you to go out and buy those things, but I don't want you to have to leave. And she goes, and she sent me a text, and she goes, nope, I have those because I have some leftover oils I'm not going to use anymore from that other company. And she did like the monkey face thing. I'm like, oh, don't ever be sad that you're, and so it's kind of, we've had 3 or 4 people on our team saying this isn't working. What are you doing that's working? And I don't know. And maybe the one last thing I wanted to mention is I have what I feel like is a secret, it always feels like a secret weapon, and it's more like a giant devil's advocate that lives in my house, which would be my husband. He works in environmental health and safety, but he happens to be a radiation physicist. And part of his job is making sure that people who work at the university don't do anything stupid or dangerous with radioactive materials, chemical waste, things like that. But he also has a side gig that only 2 people in the country do. And he does the initial drug studies for drug companies. And it's sometimes I don't even want to admit that. I'm like, but he is the most hyper ethical human being I have ever seen. And so when he does his work, his job is to put little radioactive tracers on the medications that these brand new drugs that haven't even started trials yet. But what his job is to see where they go in your body and see how fast or how long or how too long, I guess I should say, they stay in your body. So the people have to come in, they have to sign up for the study. He traces, and whether it's going to your kidney, whether it's going to, and seeing how long, and he analyzes some growth stuff. But this is when I always think about when I see a good oil study, I always show him and ask him, is this really a good study? And we've talked about sometimes, like he and my daughter just a few minutes ago were down. She's a biochem major. She got his brain. I did not have this brain. And they were talking about how they could irradiate surgical masks to make them clean and usable again. And I'm like, okay, you guys, great. Good talk. I gotta go. So I just, and how the university is asking him to make 55,000 gallons of hand sanitizer. And he's like, well, I don't know what you're going to do with all the ethyl alcohol because that's toxic. And you can't just roll up and like do that. And what you should be doing is finding a better hand sanitizer. And I'm like, okay, Joel, I got one for you. But so it's kind of interesting to have him be that scientific, hardcore sounding board of, what is this a good study? Did they do this study right? And he's like, yeah, that's a good study. Or that one's a little questionable, the sample size, but that's a good initial. So living with a guy that does that is pretty interesting. So sometimes it adds a little more credibility to my brain about all this stuff. And he's one of the main reasons we started, because of his migraines. And he got medical-induced glaucoma and went blind for 7 days on a migraine medicine. And then they told him there's nothing else you can do. And I was like, nope, not having it. So Amanda hooked me up with some frankincense and then copaiba, and that was right after my kit. And he went 7 months without having one. And he's like, well, I guess that works. So I don't know. It's all these little steps. So the pivoting of learning to Zoom and learning to send out samples and working with your team, and agreeing to disagree, and not trying to compete with strengths, but collaborate with your people, because the whole point of all of this is this team. I don't know what I would do without it. I don't know, because everybody's got something to bring to the table. And so if you're going to pivot, you take your people with you in whatever way you can and however they want to do it. And that is a beautiful thing. So I don't know if any of that was helpful, but it has been a good month in a weird way. And financially, yeah, it's great. But having 17 more houses with On Guard in it right now makes me almost cry. So thanks for trusting me to talk to you about any of this when I am kind of new to this whole doTERRA thing, but I'm not a new human to the planet, that's for sure. So
Yes. Are you open to some questions? I'm sure people have all kinds of questions.
Oh, sure, sure.
Unmute yourself if you have a question, you guys.
Maybe I talked it all out of you.
Thank you so much. I loved hearing you, girl.
Oh, Crystal, thank you so much.
Jill, I have a question. Just in
Okay.
regards to your, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is your husband okay? You said he had 7 days of blindness from a migraine. Is he better?
He is better. He actually, it was the maintenance medicine. He's had them since he was 17, and they're stroke-like. Like, he can't talk, he loses his vision, he gets really confused. It's actually quite terrifying, but I mean, I know what they are now after being married to him for 28 years. So, and so we've tried all the other medicines and they weren't working. And so they're like, you need to get on a maintenance one. So sign up, I guess it'd be equal to like seizure medicine where you're just on a maintenance dose. And he was on a business trip in Phoenix and he called me and he said, he goes, well, I'm blind. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more, use more words, please. And it was like 1 in 100,000 people have this reaction. And you're supposed to titrate off this medicine, and I'm like, you stop taking that right now. And his dad happens to live in Phoenix, and he ended up at the Mayo Clinic, and they weren't sure if it was going to come back, and it did, but there was about a 70% chance it was just going to be gone. And so I was like, well, I respect that we'll never use that again, and I respect that I really am not keen on trying anymore, but I'm also not keen on, hey, there's nothing else we can do. And so we looked at diets and we looked at all of those beautiful things and adding good, better things into his body, which he's not the best at yet. But then using those oils, and that was like, okay, we're done, we're in. I mean, for me, it's my allergies and my asthma, which I know doesn't sound like a big thing to people, but for me, it's life-changing because I've had that since I was 2 years old. And to not take something, you know, that crosses your blood-brain barrier and forces dementia, where we already have Alzheimer's in my family, I'm just like, let's try something else. And that was long before oils. And so when they came along, I mean, it was like game changer for me. So yes, he is better. He does ask for that stuff once in a while, that stuff. He's very good at taking his supplements, which is a miracle. I set them all up for everybody in the house, and they come by and take them. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Hey, Jill, it's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, girly. I'm an occupational therapist too.
Yes.
Used to
Crazy
work in
bunch.
Yep, used to work in peds. We're a fun crowd.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know about the classes that you and Amanda do. And I also wanted to know if you've done any online classes yet. I know you, without doing all the deliveries and things beforehand.
Yes, I have, and actually some of the ones that happened so fast, enough people joined in where people just kept jumping on and they didn't have samples in their hands. As far as online, do you mean like something we might have recorded, or do you mean like a Facebook Live, or do you mean
I mean, like using Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that where you can talk, you know, more openly and your, you know, what you've done there kind of thing.
We have, and Amanda did her, I can't remember, Amanda, when you did your first one. Oh, you were here? I think you were here because I was like answering questions and you were like standing behind me back there. And so I was kind of fielding questions, which actually that works really good. If you have a partner that can field questions, that was a Facebook Live one, not a Zoom. So that one actually worked really good where you have kind of like a person that can, like, as the questions are coming in, because I do have this problem where people like Zoom I love because you can stop and talk to people, and Facebook is live and you're trying to read and you're like, oh hey, and then it's like, and it stops the flow of what you're trying to talk about, and there's a lag, and it's like you're answering a question from something that was talked about 5 minutes ago. That can be really hard. But if you had somebody like, I think Amanda was doing her best thing back there because she's so skilled at it, and I was just like fielding some questions, and a lot of them I was able to answer without interrupting her. And every so often I still have to ask Amanda, and I mean, I'll go all the way up the line to ask a question. But the Zoom ones are really like this kind of format where you can see everybody and you can talk to everybody is really good. It's really, and I boosted Amanda Whitman's Zoom, is it called Pro account? You know, and so like when I'm up, like I was teaching my class, I'm like, hi, I'm Jill Webb, not Amanda Whitman, because it, you know, it shows your name down there. So you can share an account with some people if you have it, because it allows you to have as much time as you want and as many people as you want. The other Zoom, it's more like, I think it's limited to 40 minutes or something. And I try so hard to keep it short. But I think we keep our class part short, and then we have lots of discussion. That's my favorite part. And those have been I had a new builder do one, a builder I haven't even met in person yet. I've done drop-offs to her door, and she did, she happens to do Pampered Chef. And so we were swapping. So Amanda did some things where she was having people come on hers, and she did a live where she taught people how to use some Pampered Chef stuff and oils to make adult beverages. And then she popped on with all her girls, and we had the most fun class. It kind of felt like I really got to know the people. And one person enrolled immediately, and then another person enrolled the next day, and then she enrolled her own mom, and I taught her how to do that the first time. And I think she was another swap from another company, and she's like, I would answer her question. She's like, you answer my questions so fast. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, sometimes I wouldn't hear back from somebody for 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, ooh. So that's the other thing, is just really staying connected. And I don't mean have your phone with you all the time, because that's not good either, but you know, responding to people. So those 2 Zoom classes, I think there was 3 from that one. And then 2 or 3 people, I think all the people on the class joined my Facebook group and are watching, and they're asking questions. They just weren't quite ready. But those people could be April, May, June enrollments. I don't care how long it takes them to figure this out. I'll stay on there until they can ride, and this, you know, for information as long as they can. So that's the other thing I feel is so important. Like, I'm all about the Diamond Club. I get that. But if these people enroll 6 months from now, that's amazing to me. That's amazing. That means like they've really put time and thought and energy and figured out their budgets and worked hard and talked to their husbands or wives or partners or whoever. I mean, so the Zoom classes are kind of fun because it's not the same as in person, but they've been fun. And they all had their samples, and we were doing this, and they all had their little bottles, and they were smelling their oils, and they were rubbing them in their hair, and it was kind of fun, and you could see their faces like it. So it felt way more personal than like a Facebook Live. So if you have never done a Zoom, figure it out, and it's not even hard, which is good. So, all right, that was a long answer.
I mean, to be fair, the first night you boosted my account, I was like, oh crap, we scheduled a Zoom
Yeah.
for like the same.
She's like messing me. Jill, you got to get off.
I was
Jill,
like,
class
I'm
is starting.
Sincerity. I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I've got to
I'm like, sorry, everybody, I got to get off. Text me your phone numbers. And I love that. Who did that? Who did that class?
Michelle Cannon
Michelle Cannon's class.
on the doTERRA business page.
Oh my gosh. That was brilliant. It talked about how you get samples to people, do your Zoom, make it short. And at the end, it's like, hey, I want to talk to you about your stuff. And I really did. It wasn't like a gimmick. I did want to talk to the people if they had questions. So you have them send you a text to your phone number. And then you have their name and you have their contact, and then you can reach back out to them. And you can spend 5, 10, 20 minutes talking to them after the class is over, like you would do at an in-person class. That was a brilliant tip, because you stay connected with that person and they feel like they're getting their individual attention that they deserve. That was a good short class. I'm sure you could still find it somewhere, but sorry, I'm playing with this. I'm an OT, I'm fidgeting, and I've been building a chicken coop with my dad to keep busy. And so I'm like, I have these, I've probably got hay in my bra. I got all the things going on right now. Not kidding. I've been like in a duck coop, cleaning poop to move the new ducks out. It's just, I'm like, okay, 9 o'clock, here we go. I'm usually in bed at this time. So yeah. I don't know.
Jill, I love this. This is exactly how I do things.
It's so crazy.
Yes. And I really appreciate all the things you were talking about with the Zooms, because I am finding that Zooms are wonderful.
Yeah.
So I love that. Love you.
Oh, Iris, thank you. Us Nebraska girls gotta stick together.
I think that if this was like a month or two ago, I think the thing that we had in our mind was like Zoom adds an extra layer of complicity or complexity. Yeah. Like to download an app, to do this, to now do this, and now figure out where your camera is, kind of like you were talking about earlier. But I think now that we're all, stuck at home, everybody's having to figure out a new normal. And so I think now's a really great time for either you to figure out Zoom or to how to teach classes via Zoom. You guys, even somebody who's been, using oils and experiencing oils and loving oils for a decade, and then teaching about oils for 2.5 years or so, even I, like Jill mentioned earlier about the make and takes, I was like I pressed start and I was like,
Here we
oh
go.
like I didn't exactly know what I was doing. It was weird. And I think the more authentic you are with people and the more you can say like, I didn't really think this through. And thanks for being here. This is weird, right? I think that people just like resonate with that authenticity and like, I don't have all the answers, but we're going to figure it out together. And it's going to be super fun. And we're going to giggle a lot.
Oh my God. It was so nice to see faces
Yes.
that have been in my group for 2 years who've been not super active. And she's like, that's the best make and take. And I got to talk to my mom about this. And can you do another one? And it was like, there you are. But sometimes traveling to a house is the barrier. It's a barrier. I can't find who's going to watch the kids. But here it's like, it doesn't matter if your kid pops in and asks for a snack while you're doing a make and take on a Zoom. That's amazing. Like that's real life. And it gives this whole new access to people. Again, my OT brain thinking, how do we access more people, take away barriers? How do we do this? So the in-person classes, I cannot wait. And I'm like, Amanda, you gotta come over and we're gonna sit 6 feet away from the fire pit and have another conversation. But the Zoom, I don't think we'll ever stop doing those, ever. Like they're beautiful tool. So yay.
What I was going to add to that, Jill, I think one of the things, like, you can't fake caring. You just can't. And I think that you have such a genuine heart. Like you really, and we've had the pleasure of seeing that for 7 years now. That Zoom doesn't change that, face-to-face doesn't change that, texting doesn't change that. I think you're spot on that people are going to get used to using technology this way. People are starting to see that we all need connection in ways that we have kind of given up on for a while. That I think that people are ready for a connection. They're ready even through Zoom. And I think your heart can really come through no matter what the channel is. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I've made a very conscious point of is I post a ton of stuff on my Facebook group, and it's just kind of like whatever pops into my head. There is no schedule. There is no rhyme or reason. I mean, that's not true. There is. And it's just like, if I hear somebody talk about, like, I hear enough people, maybe 3 people have asked me about something, like, okay, I got to talk about that. Or we have a bunch of new people, I got to go back and repeat the same thing. Don't ever think that repeating is going to bore people, because you could talk about the Sinus Steam Cup miracle 72 times and somebody's going to need to hear it 73 times. So don't ever feel like those repeating. But those personal messages that I've sent out have been staggering. I'm like starting to get the BlackBerry thumb back in the day when they called it that. I'm like, gonna have to make myself some splints on my oven because I still know how to do that. But just messaging people like, how are you guys doing? Have you tried that? What are you thinking about? Like, how are your kids? Did you get your daughter home from the dorm in Chicago? You know, because I didn't hear her. She's like, I'm ready to sign up. And then I didn't hear from her for a week. And yeah, I wanted her to enroll, but I also was like, she had to move her daughter out, and there were sick people in her dorm room. And so I'm like, I made the point, and I actually do care. It isn't like a gimmick to get people. It's like, and having that connection, this group gives me way more than I feel like I give people. I mean, I run off of this stuff. So that's a pretty good bonus. So personal messaging, I would also say, is really super important to connect besides the classes.
What do you feel like when you do Facebook Lives? What do you feel is like a decent time frame to keep your lives to? You know, I mean, it's like, yeah, if you do a live class, I mean, that's one thing if you're calling it a class, but for people's attention spans,
Yeah.
what do you think people watch the most?
One thing I found that helps is I think there are some really people that are really organized and have like every Tuesday at 6 I'm going to do that. For me, my Tuesday at 6 is never the same. And so usually what I'll do is, and I think that's a mad skill that I don't have. And so I appreciate that about other people. And if I know that this one, I have to be honest, a lot of times I'm in bed because I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go feed goats before work. So a lot of times those times don't just work for me. I love when people record stuff though. So if you did a Zoom or you did something like this, I'd be watching that in the morning every day when I get up. So if I can't stay awake from that, so I would also encourage you to record. So what I've been doing is I might say, I have an idea, and I sometimes will pop on and just do it, but most of the time I'll say, live at 2 o'clock, I want to talk about this idea, or in 15 minutes. Sometimes that's all it takes. And then I'll have better luck with that attention because people are like, oh, she's going to come on. I try to keep mine under 10 minutes for just talking about whatever, because then you can watch it, and really probably even a little bit shorter might help people. Or if it's a topic, then if I talked a really long time because I had big feelings about something, I will probably say, oh, this is a long one, bear with me, or watch if you want, here's what I'm talking about. I'll go back and label the Facebook Live that I did. So then people know, oh, do I even want to watch this or not? Or, yeah, I want to watch this. That has something I want to talk about. And then I also can kind of tell, sometimes there is a lot of comment traffic, and then I might stay on a little bit longer because I can tell people are kind of vested in it. But that is another gut sort of know your audience sort of thing that I think maybe I'm born with it. Maybe that's the skill that I've always had that has become very, very useful for me. How much is too much, how little, and I know when I overstep some of those bounds. I've caught myself, like I've, talked a little too much about something or little, and I was like, oh, correction. But so recording it, because people will come back and give them the opportunity. So never think that just because nobody's watching it and there's only one person that you can see watching it, people will come back. I would watch this sizzle every morning, the next morning at 5:30 in the morning if I could, because I miss it a lot because I'm asleep. So that's a good idea. And then just giving people a warning and then go back and like, what did I say in all this? And then adding a title of some sort, because I watch yours all the time. I may not catch them at the time because I have a day job. Now it's a little bit easier, of course, because I'm home. But I go back and watch yours, Dana, all the time if I could. And if they're recorded and I know what you're topping, I'm like, nope, I got to go back and watch that and I'll tag it. So, I mean, so again, even if people are not watching, they have an opportunity to watch.
How easy is it to find them again in days past?
That's a great idea. So that just gave me another idea, because I used to not label them, but now I might label them with a topic. So then when they go up to that search bar, it'll probably pull that thing up, you know, like in your own groups. Or even in, you know, I think some of you are doing, I wanted to find a balance between my personal Facebook page and a VIP. That's where I found my balance. So it's a private group, but it is for anybody that wants to jump in and see what it's all about. Every so often I go in and clean it up if I haven't heard from somebody, or maybe I found out for some reason they're doing something else, but that's been very few people. So I think if you labeled it the right thing, I think you could tag it then and you could go back and search it.
Because that's the hardest thing I have is trying to find it again.
Yeah.
Even if it's hours later, I can't find it.
True. I wonder if we need to problem solve that as a group. I wonder
So
if
I
you label it.
found just in the
Everybody
last
uses a
2
different
days
platform.
that if I'm ever looking for something, like, and we're talking about like let's say like Dana talked about bergamot, whatever
Magic.
the thing is, I would like type in Dana bergamot, and somehow Facebook has this new magical search that like it literally, if you were to type in like I'm talking like the bare minimum of what you're looking for, somehow magically, if you type that into search and you scroll just a teeny bit, you're going to see a little thumbnail of what you're looking for. So I think that searching for things is becoming really easy, just from a Facebook algorithm standpoint.
That's good. That's good. I have recently definitely been adding a description because I used to not do that, and then it's kind of gone into Never Neverland for sure. So
Another thing, if you see a video you want to watch, just click those 3 dots and then hit save. And it will go to you have a save folder on your Facebook, then you can just go back to saved and watch it and move on. But that way, because I do that too, where you're scrolling and you see something funny and then you want to go back and see it and all of a sudden it's gone because your algorithm changes. So if you see something you want to save, just hit save.
yeah. And I think, you were talking about like if you've done a live, how do you help your people go back and find that if they didn't see it at all?
Another thing we need to take advantage of more is the watch party, right? Go back to a live and start a watch party on your live. Bring it back to the top.
I did that once by accident. My mom's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Mom. I don't know. But thanks for watching."
What are you doing? That's the best.
I mean, I'll tell you all the things I mess up because those are my favorite things. Like, watch party about something I don't know, and everybody was watching it with me. They're like, "Hey, Jill." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Oh, that's the best. Anybody else have any other questions? This call was awesome. Jill, thank you so much. I feel like, I mean, if you're sitting here and you don't have a list full of ideas, you're doing something wrong, right? Like there was just so much good information thrown at us. Like I obviously need to go buy 75 pets, square one.
Like, yeah. I could probably hook you up with a few turkeys.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I'll get this recording posted right away first thing in the morning. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Thanks.
Good night, rock stars. See ya.